Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you are all well. I hope you're all having a fantabulous weekend. And yeah, I'm having a good one. I'm having a good weekend. Having a bit of a chilled one. You're looking amazing, by the way. You must be having a good weekend. And that's all that matters, isn't it? That's all that matters. We have a few good days. We can have bad days, but as long as we have good ones and they balance out, that's all that matters. And like I say, you do look amazing, so something's going right. Let's get straight into the meat and potatoes. Look, over the last few days, we've spoken about numerous things. One of the things that has been main topic of conversation is the difference between the two camps, the Bryan Kohberger guilty, the Bryan Kohberger innocent, and as we are sort of heading into this uncharted territory. And what I mean by that, Bryan Kohberger is a bit of an enigma. And people tend to be very easy to turn around and say, look, what you've got to think of, we've had the Ted Bundys, we've had the Jeffrey Dahmers, we've had the BTKs, the Ed Geins and things like this. And Bryan Kohberger could easily be a killer. And they'll say, look at Ted Bundy, for instance. Ted Bundy walks into a sorority house and he attacks multiple people and leaves multiple victims. But let's not forget that when Ted Bundy did this crime, that wasn't his first crime. Ted Bundy had been active as a serial killer for many years, and he had been caught, and then he had escaped, and this, in my opinion, was almost like a swan song. This was a knee-jerk reaction to what he knew was inevitability. His time was coming to an end, and that's what this crime was about. Now, with Bryan Kohberger, we've got a very, very different set of circumstances here at the moment from what we can see. Because on one hand, we've got somebody who is academically sound. And what I mean by that, he doesn't seem to be struggling in that manner. He may be socially awkward, but academically he seems to be excelling, and he excels it just so happens, in this criminal arena where he should be able to learn specifics about crime. Now, some people could say he could get an insight how to do things and how not to do things, but seemingly this crime and his academia, there is a disjointment there. There is something missing. That doesn't seem like who did the crime fits the academic profile of Bryan Kohberger and that smartness. Now, could you say that the crime itself was knee-jerk to something? Like when we talk about Ted Bundy, for instance, and that situation at the sorority house where that was a knee-jerk to being captured, escaping, and then going on this jaunt, if you like. And was this crime simply a knee-jerk reaction to something? We don't know, but we need proof of that. From this point, all we can do is look at the evidence that has been presented. And the evidence that has been presented and the evidence that we can look at and think, right, 100%, this is accurate. This is accurate evidence, and this is what we need to, at this stage, be using to help us to make a decision on where we sit with Bryan Kohberger being innocent or guilty at this time. Like, people talk about BTK and the fact that his first murder, if you like, was a family of four, and he enters into a house and he does this heinous act. But even BTK had sort of gone through the process that you would expect from a serial killer, the hurting of animals, the stalking people, the failed attempts at doing things, such as kidnap, for instance. He didn't just decide one day, this is what I'm going to do. This is my first venture out. This is my first crime, and this is how I'm going to pop my cherry, so to speak. And that's what we have with Bryan Kohberger. It seems that he didn't do a load of things that we can look back on and say, right, we can see that by doing this is where he has got. There was an escalation here. There was an escalation. Bryan Kohberger, for him to have done this crime, he would have to be an outlier unless there are other things in the background. Now, we have heard right early back on in this investigation that they were looking into other crimes potentially that they felt Bryan Kohberger could have been involved in. And they found nothing. There has been nothing publicized. There has been no mention of anything whatsoever that Bryan Kohberger has been involved in, apart from petty crimes such as stealing the phone from his sister, which, again, I've alluded to the fact that this proves that Bryan Kohberger didn't seem to have the balls to go out and do something beyond a crime that was still kept within the sanctuary of his family. Did he feel that, oh, I've just stolen my sister's phone, so it's not really that bad? You know, if Bryan Kohberger, under the influence, went out and he started robbing people's houses, breaking into people's homes, or robbing people on the street, which could have been easy. Do you know what I mean? These are things that happen all the time. But Bryan Kohberger, by all accounts, it doesn't seem that he did that. He did a crime, again, that was kept within the sanctuary of the family unit, and the family unit dealt with it. But we have nothing else whatsoever. And even in terms of the knife use, for instance, all we have is a short period of time that he spent with the fishmongers, and he wasn't able to fulfill that job role. He was unable to do that for two reasons. One being he's not very good with people, and he wasn't able to use the tools that he was given. But let's accept that time can progress and things can change. And I have spoken on this knife use, the K-bar knife, for instance. Now, people have turned around and said that this knife, this K-bar knife, is anybody can get hold of it. They're very easy to get hold of. But I put it to someone that if you listen to the likes of Kathy Mabbitt, if you listen to the likes of Steve Gonsalves about the victims and the injuries that they had sustained, again, I put it to you that it would seem that whoever was the facilitator here knew their way around this weapon to a degree that would go beyond what a layman would. If a layman picks up a knife, they think of a knife as a stabbing implement, where that is not right with a K-bar. I did a standalone video some time ago that went into the details of the K-bar, how it come about in military use, and how it was designed to be used. And there is echoes of that. There's echoes of that in the crime with what we hear about the injuries, again, the injuries that were sustained. And they point towards, again, somebody who had familiarity with this, not just to what it was, because it's this well-known brand, well-known weapon, but military skill, military training, whether they themselves were military or knew someone in the military, had been helped by someone in the military. That's for us to have a conversation over and see what we feel about it and think about it. We can digress, I suppose. But with regards to Bryan Kohberger, again, I put it to you that Bryan Kohberger at this stage, it would seem, would have to be an outlier if he is the person who committed this crime. Because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that points to him being, how would you say, a serial killer, for instance, or a would-be killer. We have not heard where he had been involved in the torturing of animals, the hurting of animals. In fact, we have heard that he is vegan. Now, veganism is, you wouldn't expect that. That goes completely against that. Again, this would make him an outlier. To be a vegan but then use a leather knife sheath. Again, he would have to be an outlier, a vegan who would use a leather product in such a manner and then go on to do this heinous act. But it's too easy. It's too easy for people to pair the evil doesn't necessarily have a specific face, have a specific look, and then turn around and point to the likes of Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, BTK, Jeffrey Dahmer, and pick and choose the crimes that they committed and put a familiarity to the Bryan Kohberger case, when in reality there is no familiarity. There is nothing similar, only the outcome. And the individual crime itself, you could say, well, BTK killed 4 people. He entered into a house and he did this crime, and he was a serial killer. Bryan Kohberger could have entered into this house and executed these 4 students. But there is nothing else that points you in the direction that that's where he was heading. Where did he pick up the skills to do it? Where did he pick up the skills to use a weapon? Where did he learn the mental fortitude to not only do this crime? If this was his first rodeo and he had never done anything like this before, then again, the mental fortitude to do something and be able to work your way through it, and there being no repercussions from a mental perspective. Like, we have seen him, he has been incarcerated, but he still seems to be solid in his state of mind. He is smiling, he is confident, he exudes confidence. And it's a scary thing, because you're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, because you could say, well, he's confident because he's arrogant. It's very easy for people to put down confidence and say, well, they're not confident, they're just arrogant. They think they're going to get away with it. But it doesn't look like he is going to get away with it. If I was a betting man, I'd say he's not going to get away with it. Not if he keeps things as they are, keeps Ann Taylor as his legal counsel and his current team, and he doesn't make changes now. I feel that this is going in one direction, and it's very, very likely that he is going to get found guilty. Now, whether there is an appeal later, who knows, but the state already know, and that they alluded to the fact that if he appeals, then they will just keep going and going and going and going and going until they get it. And I found it very interesting that even went down that route, because if they had a strong enough case, then would there even be room for appeal? If they have this slam dunk case, or what some of us may feel that there is potentially a trial by ambush, is there, why would they even consider that he would have a chance to appeal that they would have to rebuff? But again, I put it to you, is Bryan Kohberger an outlier? He could be, but he isn't a Ted Bundy, he's not a BTK. He is not a Jeffrey Dahmer. All these people went through a process where it got them to where they reached their pinnacle, and then they hit their demise and they were caught and out of there. Bryan Kohberger seems to have skipped everything, all that. Nobody knows anything. Nobody has been able to come forward with any true detail that would point you to a thought process where he is, he's the guy, he definitely did this, and you can look at this and make a decision. All we've got is a mainstream narrative who have been picking up bones of things and twisting stories. And some people have fallen for them hook, line, and sinker, and feel that those stories are accurate, and that's where they've come to this conclusion over Bryan Kohberger. But make no bones about it, as far as what we know to be fact, there is nothing, not one thing, that would tell us that Bryan Kohberger is a BTK or a Ted Bundy. He's just not what we have seen yet. For him to have done this crime, I feel that if he did it, this is not his only crime. This was not Bryan Kohberger's first crime if he did this. I cannot and will not accept it, that this was the first thing that he had ever done if he did it. So if he did it, then what else has he done? And why don't we know about them? Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the live in a few hours.